this. In this case, I have 1.385 minus 8.2. Now, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, let's pretend like I have $1.38, right? And then like 1/2 of a penny, OK? So let's pretend like that's the amount of money I have or how much weight I have or something. And I'm subtracting 8.2. My answer is obviously going to be negative, right? If you have 1 and a decimal minus 8 and a decimal, that answer is going to be negative, right? I don't care if you're talking about food, weight, gold, money, whatever. You subtract that much amount from 1, you're going to have negatives. Does everybody agree with me? But remember, our algorithm, we can only subtract the smaller from the larger. So when I rewrite this problem, the way that I'm going to rewrite it is 8.2 minus 1.385. Does everybody see what I did? I rewrote it so it's always the larger minus the smaller. However, it's very important for you to remember, the original problem, we know the answer is going to be negative, right? So before I go any farther, I'm going to write the negative sign. Because basically, ladies and gentlemen, think about it this way. 5 minus 1 is 4, right? 1 minus 5 is negative 4. One's positive, one's negative, right? But the absolute distance is still 4, right? If you guys took like the absolute value of that. So the difference, it doesn't matter which way I subtract them. The difference between those two numbers is going to be the same. It just depends on if one's going to be positive or negative. Well, in this case, we know we're going to have to find the negative value. So now I need to apply my division algorithm, or sorry, subtraction algorithm. So I'm going to fill in those two spots with zeros. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot subtract a 0 from the 5. So I look to borrow from the 0. I can't borrow from this 0. So then I look for the 2. I can't borrow from that 2. So therefore, I have to look to the 8. So I borrow from the 8, which is going to make that a 7. Then that's going to make that a 12. But I got to keep on borrowing, right? So now that turns to 11, which makes that a 10. Borrow from there makes that a 9. And then that becomes a 10. Now I subtract vertically. 10 minus 5 is 5. 9 minus 8 is 1. 11 minus 3 is 8. 7 minus 1 is 6. And the decimal point is aligned. So my final answer is 6.815. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions on that?
Because if you look at the original one, you're subtracting stuff.
The borrowing part, I'm still confused on that.
The what?
The borrowing part, like why can't you just make the 0 a 10 and then the 9?
Why can't, just make that a 10?
Yeah, like why did you go all the way over there?
Well, again, you just can't make that a 10 and just say you subtracted. You have to be able to take it back from the previous place value. So, I mean, think about this. You know that basically all you're doing is when you can't subtract a number, you can't subtract 5 from 0. What we need to do is we need to add a place value to it. So we have to borrow it from the previous one.
Right.
And we just keep on going over. Well, I can't borrow 0 from 5. I can't borrow from 0. And yeah, I could borrow from 2. But the problem is if I borrow from 2, I'm going to have to borrow again from 8 to get 2. Because if you borrow from 2 and make this 1, right, then that's fine. But then 1 minus 3, you have to borrow from the 8 again as well. OK, so that's why I always like to start as far to the left as possible and then just go all the way to the right.